Et bonjour, it's Jennifer, your French teacher in the south of France. And today I'm going to talk to you about two prepositions of location. There are lots of prepositions of location, derrière, behind, devant, in front of, à côté de, next to. But these two, en and dans, can sometimes get confusing. Now keep in mind, en can mean lots of different things. I'm not talking about using en as a pronoun. We're using it as a preposition in this lesson, okay? So the prepositions en and dans can both mean in, and they can both express time, like I'm doing something in 5 minutes. They can both express location, okay? I am in the classroom, I am in the kitchen, that kind of thing. But they're not interchangeable, unfortunately. So everything depends on context and grammars. I'm going to show you the rules and a few little examples, okay? So first of all, let's start talking about en. We're going to use en if we want to express the length of time, the amount of time that it takes to do something. Okay, so that's like if you're saying, in my first example, je peux mettre la table en 5 minutes. Je peux mettre la table en 5 minutes. What it means is I can set the table in 5 minutes, but don't be confused. It doesn't mean I can set the table 5 minutes from now. It means it will take me 5 minutes. I can complete this task within 5 minutes. Okay, so that's when you use en. Il a lu le livre en 1 heure. Il a lu le livre en 1 heure. So he read the book within an hour, within 1 hour. Okay? J'ai appris à parler français en 3 ans. J'ai appris à parler français en 3 ans. I learned how to speak French in 3 years. That's not very long. But anyway, that's just what I wrote for my example. Okay, so that's one way to use en. And you can also use en to express the month, season, or year in which something happens. So anytime you're talking about a month, for example, nous rentrons à l'école en septembre. Nous rentrons à l'école en septembre means we go back to school in September. So we're going to say en janvier, en février, en mars, en avril, en mai, etc., etc., etc. Okay, use always en in front of the months. When we're talking about seasons, we also use en. Il viendra en été. So he will come in the summer. Il viendra en été. We would also say il viendra en automne. En automne, in the fall or in autumn. Il viendra en hiver, in winter. But there's an exception. For the spring, we're going to say au printemps. Au printemps. D'accord? You'll notice that printemps begins with a consonant and it's not an H. So that's the reason for that. Okay, we're also going to use en to mean in or to. Now we're talking about location, in terms of location, when followed directly by a noun that doesn't need an article. Okay? Here's what I mean by that. Look at the first example. Vous allez en prison. Vous allez en prison. You're going to prison. Now, I'm not saying you're going to the prison down the street to see somebody. No, I'm not talking about a particular prison. I'm talking about you are going in there. Okay? Il est en cours. Il est en cours. So that means he's in class. I could have said he is in the classroom. But that wouldn't be en. We're going to see that a little bit later with dans. This means he is, remember, we're not using articles. Look up at the top. We're using them en when it's followed directly by a noun that doesn't need an article, okay? So this just means he's in class rather than he's in the classroom, you see? I'm in a meeting. Je suis en réunion. It doesn't say I'm in the meeting hall or whatever, the conference room. It just says I'm in a meeting. Je suis en réunion. Tu habites en banlieue? Do you live in the suburbs? D'accord? So we can use en in terms of location with when followed directly by nouns that don't need articles. Okay, now en means to or in with feminine countries, states, provinces, and with all continents, because all of the continents are indeed feminine. Now, I'm not going to give you a whole list in this lesson, but I'll put a link for you in my blog so that you can go and have a look at all of, or at least a lot of countries, states, and provinces. But the first one, j'habite en Californie. J'habite en Californie means I live in California. Why en Californie? Because Californie, the way you say it in French, it's a feminine state. Now, there are only 9 feminine U.S. states. We'll talk about those in a little while. But Californie is one of them, and you'll notice that it ends with the letter E. D'accord? So that's a big hint that it's feminine. Voilà. On va en France. We are going to France. Well, France is a feminine country. It also ends with the letter E, you see. Nous passons 3 semaines en Provence. En Provence, feminine region, we're spending 3 weeks in Provence. L'Italie est en Europe. L'Italie est en Europe. So look at that. Italy is in Europe. Europe is a feminine continent, as they all are, okay? So remember that we're using en to mean I'm going to California or I am in California. It means both of those, okay? And we use en really with the feminine countries, states, provinces, etc. That's going to be important here in a few minutes. Now let's move on to dans. Dans is going to tell the amount of time before something happens. So j'arrive dans 5 minutes means I will be there in 5 minutes. J'arrive dans 5 minutes. When we talked about en, we said we use en when we're talking about how much time it takes us to do something. Remember, I can set the table in 5 minutes. It means within 5 minutes time. Okay, that's not how you use dans. Dans, we're talking about the amount of time before something happens. So on revient dans une heure. On revient dans une heure means we will be back in this amount of time. Okay, in an hour. Je pars dans une semaine. Je pars dans une semaine means I'm leaving in 1 week's time. Okay? Bien. When you want to talk about something that happens during a decade, you know how we say, oh, in the 20s, in the 30s, in the 40s, in the 80s, whatever. You do this in French using the preposition dans, you see, and it's followed by that definite article, les années. Okay? Dans les années 50, in the 50s, dans les années 80, in the 80s, during the 80s, if you prefer. And you can do that with any of the decades. Now, in terms of location, when we're talking about using dans with location, now we're going to use it when followed by an article with a noun. So remember a little while ago I showed you en. I was like, I'm in class. Je suis en cours. I'm in a meeting. Je suis en réunion. This is an actual place where we are. The kitchen. I am in the kitchen. Je suis dans la cuisine. Dans la cuisine. So that article is important when using dans. Je suis dans la salle de bain. Means I'm in the bathroom. Je suis dans la salle de bain. In that room. Now, I just want to show you, this is an exception, but it's really an important one. If you want to say I'm in the restroom, like the bathroom where the toilet is, depending on where you are or where you learned English, or, I'm American, so I say the restroom. You might say the toilet. You might say, whatever it is you call it, it's the place where the toilet is. So you say, je suis aux toilettes, A-U-X. You wouldn't say, je suis dans les toilettes, because then we imagine you down there in the toilet. So, be careful not to make that mistake. I mean, it's not the end of the world. You'll make some people laugh, and that can open up a new conversation. So, okay, je suis aux toilettes, but je suis dans la salle de bain. Voilà. Now, dans. Let's get back to these states and provinces. Before we said, for example, I am in California, je suis en Californie, because I said Californie is one of 9 U.S. states that's feminine. It ends with the letter E, okay? I said je suis en France, because France is a feminine country. It ends with an E, okay? But here we have le Montana. Le Montana, well, the last letter is A, not E. This is a masculine state. So I'm going to say j'habite dans le Montana. dans le Montana. Okay. I can also say j'habite au AU Montana. You have choices there. Je vais dans l'Ontario. Je vais dans l'Ontario. Okay. Voilà. That means I'm going to Ontario. Since it begins with a vowel, I could say en. Je vais en Ontario. It's an option. One is no better than the other. So just to recap, use en with feminine states and provinces, and they usually end with the letter E. There are some exceptions. I'll tell you the biggest one, the most common exception that you need to know is Mexique. Mexique ends with Q-U-E, so the last letter is E, but it's not feminine. It's not a feminine country. Okay, it's masculine. Le Mexique. So that means the U.S. state New Mexico is Le Nouveau Mexique. It's also masculine. So that's an exception. So we're going to use dans le with masculine states and provinces that begin with a consonant. Optional. You can use AU with these. There are two states where you don't have the option, and that's Le Texas and Le Nouveau Mexique. With those, if you're saying that you're going to Texas or to New Mexico, or you're in Texas or in New Mexico, you have to use O. I know that this is just ridiculously complicated, the American states. First of all, there's lots of questions, but voilà. You have to say au Texas and au Nouveau Mexique. Use dans L apostrophe with masculine states and provinces that begin with a vowel, but just like Ontario, you can use en with them if you want to, because they begin with a vowel. There are always exceptions, but you can go to my blog, and I have a link to a list of U.S. states in French, along with their prepositions, and also a Quizlet study set that you can use to practice and master those. And also with the Quizlet study set, it's free to use. You can hear, you have the option to listen to the pronunciation of all of the U.S. states. Okay, so that's it for this lesson. Merci beaucoup et à bientôt. Oui, voilà, ciao.